Hey, what's up? It's Tati, and I'm back with another review of Dark Side of the Ring, Season 1, Episode 2, Montreal Screwjob. We already knew most of the information that was on this already, but I'm still going to talk about it. Many years later, it's good to see a lot of people involved was able to talk about this, and I feel like it wasn't a lot of animosity. Wait, let me take that back because Cornette and Russo was having a little fuckery on this episode, but I'll talk about that a little bit later. So this is one of those moments where it's like infamous because two things happen. You had the boss completely screw someone who was, I guess you can say, really loyal to the company, and also secrets about wrestling was revealed because of what Vince McMahon has done. So, when Vince says Brett screwed Brett, honestly, I feel like none of that would have happened had Vince McMahon had not made that decision to go that route with making Brett lose without actually losing. So Brett was a big star. Like, people knew about him all over the world. He's wrestled all over the world. And coming off from Stampede Wrestling, when his dad had to sell to Vince McMahon, he was a hot commodity for WWF. And him being part of the company, brought in a lot of viewers as well because people loved him all over the world. Now, Ric Flair had an injury and he had to obviously take some time off and get better. And who was next to be in line to be that top guy? They chose for Brett to be that guy. And honestly, I think at the time it was the right decision. But also, HBK was also, becoming popular, and they could have gone that route too. But I think Brett was the best option as far as these two goes. Now, honestly, I feel like Brett is a little bratty. He kind of is, but Sean is like a dick. So, like, you got two big egos that are, at the top of the company. And I think it was a lot for Vince McMahon to keep both of these guys happy. And ultimately, he had to do what was best for the company as far as Brett not leaving the company with the title. Now, honestly, I agree. If you're leaving a company and you have the title, you should vacate that title. How you do it, that's really it varies on how to do it. The issue was is that Brett felt like he did not want to drop this title to HBK. I guess they was having like real life issues where they were beefing backstage, and he just felt like he was just not worth it to actually lose to with that title. So I can get it. Like, the egos are in the way. However, like, I think it would have been nothing to just lose it to him and just move on to another company. But also, Brett did pitch, hey, let me win at Survivor Series, and then I'll vacate the title the next day. And obviously, to Sean, that don't make sense. Why should I lose when you're just going to drop it the next day to basically to no one? And if anything, they would have like a tournament um, for someone to win that at the end. And to HBK, that doesn't make any sense. It kind of doesn't. Like, might as well just give it to him. But obviously, his ego's in a way. So now they had some issues where one time Brett mentions that he's like, hey, I want to go out and, do a promo on you. I'm going to mention about your magazine where you were covering your dick with the title and all that stuff. And HBK's like, yeah, sure, that's fine. But when he got back from cutting that promo, HBK was just crying like, bro, I can't believe you said that about me. Why would you even say that? Why would you go that far? And Brett is like, what the fuck? Like, you literally agreed for me to talk about this. So then it was Sean's turn to cut a promo on Brett, and he mentions that Brett has sunny days, implying that Brett was sleeping around with Sunny. Now that's a huge problem because people are like, whoa, Brett sleeping around with Sunny and he married with kids? And also his wife is probably like, well, what the fuck is going on? Like, I totally get it because around that time, Sunny was probably sleeping with just about everybody that was walking backstage. So, is that true? I don't know. But Brett insinuates that. is definitely Sean that was sleeping around with Sonny, and I can totally see that. And you know, they kind of had like this beef because I guess they're seeing things on camera that the other is not agreeing to be said. So now he's like, I don't know how much time had passed, but Brett was coming out the shower, and he's combing his hair. HBK comes in the bathroom, and he's like, oh, hey, hey, HBK, what's up? And HBK's like, you think I'm gonna fucking talk to you? And Brett is upset about how he reacted to that, and he grabs HBK by the hair, and they just start scrapping in the bathroom. And Brett was like, there was at some points where HBK, both his feet wasn't even touching the ground. Like, I was literally throwing him around in that bathroom. And Brooklyn Brawler goes to Vince, who's having a meeting with Cornette, and say, hey, they're fighting in the bathroom. We got to get them to stop. Honestly, there's a whole bunch of grown men back there. They all could have just pulled them off from each other instead of going to tell Vince. So HBK runs into Vince's office, and he has a clump of hair in his hand and slams on the table, and he goes, this is an unfucking safe environment. I don't like this. And Vince is upset because he got these two top stars who are just fighting behind the scenes, and obviously wants everyone to be getting along. Now, during this time, WCW is killing it with the ratings. So Vince is losing money, and he is like not in a good spot financially. And he had previously given come in agreement with Brett about his new contract, because his contract was expiring, he was going to leave, and WCW offered him $2 million something, like all the way up to towards $3 million. He offered way more money. However, Vince was like, hey, you know, I'll give you, I think, 1.5 million for 20 years. Honestly, that doesn't really sound good to me. But Brett decided to take it. He felt loyal to the WWF and Vince McMahon, so he took that deal. And honestly, Vince was not able to hold his end of the bargain, because him losing money with the rating wars that was going on, he had no choice other than to, you know, cut some contracts and you know, put things at a lower amount. Now, Brett doesn't disclose like how much of that was cut, but obviously it was enough for him to say, fuck it, I'm going to WCW, I can't deal with this shit. It wasn't enough for him, so he decided that he was going to move on to WCW. Now, with that being said, he has the title. What are they going to do with the title? Vince is like, give it to Sean. You and Sean are going to go at it at the Survivor Series, and Sean's going to win. Brett's like, hell no, I'm not losing to that motherfucker. He ain't worth it. Not for me. And Vince is like, man, he's the next top guy. I need you to, you know, drop the title to Sean. They kept pitching so many scenarios on how they were going to be able to get that title off of Brett. So, you know, just to make everyone happy in the situation, but Brett was turning down every little thing that they said. So here's a part that just got like really out of hand. Yeah, Vince Russo, Vince McMahon, and Cornette, they're talking about what can they do. They had just got off the phone with Brett talking about how they were going to vacate the title or drop the title, whatever situation is. And Brett was saying no to everything. So now they're back at the drawing board, and they're coming up with ideas. Both of these guys come on camera for the documentary and states that they both came up with the idea and not the other. So basically, they're both kind of fighting over, well, it was me. I'm the one who came up with the Montreal Screwjob. Vince Russo was like, man, I wish I never came up with this idea, but it was me. I'm the one who told Vince McMahon to do this and that. And it's like they both wanted to have credit for this. And I was like, yeah, really fighting over who came up with this idea? Based on how they explained it, I kind of felt like it was Jim Cornette. He seemed more like the one to come up with that type of idea versus Vince Russo. I can't say who's lying, because one of them is definitely not telling the truth, but it just feels more like it was Jim Cornette who would have came up with this idea. And obviously Vince McMahon is not part of this documentary, so we're not going to know. He's not gonna be able to tell us which one was it, but them just fighting over it was just so weird to see. They both hate each other guts. As a matter of fact, Jim Cornette says he has to live past Vince Russo so he can get a chance to piss on his grave before he dies. And that is so fucking deep to say about somebody. Like, you really don't like him so much. I think the biggest issue is, like, obviously they clash as far as personalities go, but how Cornette views wrestling and versus how Russo views wrestling are very, very different. And I think that really shows. Like, you can see, like, Cornette, he's so knowledgeable on pro wrestling, and he wants to do things, I think he wants to do things traditionally, versus Vince Russo, who's like, yeah, like, let's put this whole Jerry Springer aspect towards into it. You know, like how we had the Attitude Era. While it's so popular, many people still prefer how wrestling was before all those storylines and all that foolishness came up apart. And, like, wrestling isn't just wrestling anymore; it's sports entertainment. And you know, there's so many changes, and I think that was difficult for Cornette to realize for himself, because wrestling was just not the same anymore. Like, towards the mid 90s going up, things changed drastically, and as far as booking the show, it just wasn't what it was anymore. And for Cornette, it just wasn't working. So I totally understand that. Now, here we go. It's the day of the pay-per-view. Well, actually, the day before the pay-per-view, Earl had nerves on his flight, and the stewardess come and said, hey, you got a first class ticket, your seat's all the way in the front next to Mr. Hart. And now he's like, oh shit, what's going on now? He sits next to Brett, and Brett's like, look, I don't know what's gonna go down. They're gonna fuck me over, and they're probably gonna ask you to help with that. I need you to promise me that if you know something, tell me. If they ask you to do something, please, I need you to just have my back and not turn on me. And Earl was like, yeah, sure, man. I swear I wouldn't do anything. I don't know what's going on. This ain't, you know, this ain't me to be just going behind your back. We're friends. We're real cool. I don't have no problem with you. If I know something, I'm going to tell you. And the next day, everybody's getting ready for the pay-per-view. Brett is shooting a documentary called Wrestling with Shadows, which I haven't seen in so long. And he got the film crew just basically filming everything his last day at the WWF. And they put a mic on him. They're like, hey, I know you're going to go talk to Vince McMahon. Just put this mic on. Don't let him know that, you know, he's being recorded. Just in case he says something or something happens, it could be recorded. So he goes in a room and speak to Vince, and basically saying, hey, you know, we're about to go out there. I just want to let you know that I still feel like I don't want to lose to HBK. I just want to win this match and vacate the title on Raw tomorrow night. He wanted to give a speech and all that stuff, and Vince didn't seem to disagree with that, and he laughed and left it like that. And I think Brett was thinking that that's how it was going to end, because that's the last thing they talked about. So now they're getting ready for the match. Bruce Pritchard says he had no idea that the Montreal Screwjob was going to happen. According to him, the last time he spoke to Cornette and Vince and them, it was that Owen Hart and British Bulldog was going to interfere in this match, and it was going to end with no contest. And I guess that makes sense too. I don't know, but that's what Bruce said. It was the last thing that they agreed on. So he had no idea anything else was going to happen. So Earl's getting ready to go out or whatnot, and Gerald Briscoe pulls him over. According to Earl, he's like, he grabbed him and told him, hey, when Brett pulled that sharpshooter, I'm sorry, not Brett, when Sean puts the sharpshooter on Brett, ring the fucking bell. And he's like, what? Is he gonna tap? And he's like, just do what I told you to do. And now he's realizing they're asking him to screw Brett over. And Brett is, you know, Brett had just talked to him the day before, and he reassured him that nothing was going to happen. And he's like, man, I don't think I can do that. You know, I always look out for Brett. We're real cool. And then Jerry goes, well, who signs your fucking checks? Is it Bret Hart or Mr. McMahon? You know how he says his name. And he's like, oh shit. Like, what can I possibly do? I don't want to lose my job over this. However, he doesn't want to lose his friend over this. But what are you going to choose? Your job or your friend? And we obviously know how that went. So he calls his brother and say, hey, I don't know what's gonna happen tonight, but I need you to pack all my shit, put it in the car, and keep the engine running, and wait until I get in that car. And that's what his brother did. Basically, packed all this stuff, put it in the car, and he waited until his brother got out so that they can fucking flee the scene. And I think he made up his mind. At first, he said that he wasn't sure what he was going to do, but obviously, the second you called your brother and told him that, you made up your mind. You was going to do it. So the match goes on as planned. Well, not necessarily as planned. The match goes on, and Brett is like keeping an eye out just in case something happens. But it seems like that last conversation he had with Vince is how it's going to go. Obviously, it didn't go that way. HBK puts on the sharpshooter, and according to Brett, he did it incorrectly, and I guess he was trying to fix that so that, obviously fans are going to be able to detect if he did it wrong or not. But before he can even, fix that, he looks over at Vince while he's, laying on his chest, and then he sees Vince saying, "Oh, ring the bell, ring the bell." And he's like, "Oh shit, they're about to screw me over." And he tries to reverse from the sharpshooter, but it was already too late. You already had Earl signal to ring the bell, and the bell was rung, and Earl was like, "Let me get the fuck out of here." And he was gone before you could blink. And to me, I feel like Brett kind of looked surprised. I felt like he genuinely did not know this was going to happen. And you can also see HBK look surprised too. But as we know now, he was obviously in on this. But Brett was just really upset because Kevin Nash, I'm saying Kevin Nash, Scott Hall, he states that he feels like Brett was in on it too. Like, he knew about this. He felt like Brett's reaction wasn't genuine. He didn't really feel like Brett seemed to be surprised about what happened. He seems like he didn't seem shocked. And when he spit on Vince after that, he felt like, oh, the camera was just ready to get that scene, as if they planned this. He just felt like none of that stuff would have been caught on camera if they didn't even know what was going to happen. And then, Brett, after that, he's destroying the equipment, and he's really upset. Then he signals on the to the screen, the WCW, and it's like, why would all that be filmed? Because Vince McMahon wanted it to be filmed, so Brett had to be part of it. I don't feel like he was part of it at all, honestly. But, all that didn't really have to happen. Vince McMahon was upset because after that, Brett went on the show. What's that show called? Off the Record, where they would do interviews with athletes and things like that. And I remember a lot of wrestlers being on that show too. And he basically spilled the beans on how wrestling works behind the scenes, and I'm putting out some of these secrets and things like that because a lot of people just did not know how all this stuff works out. So now Vince McMahon, he comes on talking about Brett screwed Brett. He didn't have to go out and say all these things about our business. There's a whole brotherhood when it comes to the business. You don't just go out there and just telling the public, how we do things. And while that may be true, it was ultimately what you did that made him have to feel like he has to defend himself, because everyone felt like, according to Cornette, when he pitched the idea, he was like, when we screw him over, Brett will not break that code and just go out there and just say, oh, well, this is how our business work, and this is what was supposed to happen. And I think they were generally surprised that Brett actually went out there and, said what happened, and, described to people how everything went down, because people just did not understand how wrestling works. And it all makes sense. Obviously, when it comes to wrestling, there has to be a winner. And okay, you guys pick out who's going to win, how the match is going to go. Everything is planned and scripted. That stuff does make sense. This is not just wrestling anymore. This is sports entertainment, where you have 2 hours to, have a good show. And these things need to be predetermined. And I think that's one of the situations that made people come out with saying all the time that wrestling is fake and all that stuff, because how are you going to pick who's going to win before the match, And I can understand why people feel that way, but at the same time, it works when things are planned. because this is like it's almost like a movie in a way, where it's like everybody has storylines, and you go on week by week, you play this part, you have this match, and everything just comes in together as a cohesive unit at the end of every storyline or whatnot, so it makes sense. But you know, Vince felt like Brett should have never went out there and put out the wrestling business out there for people to know what was going on. And ultimately that helped Vince McMahon in a way, coming off as a heel and being that boss character that everyone loves to hate. And I think that helped him in the long run. But for Bret Hart, that did not really work out, because when he went to WCW, the very first night he was there, they were asking him to be a special guest referee. And you can see in his face, like, he was just not with it. But you know, he went along with whatever they asked him to do, and he ultimately quit, because really his career was just nothing at WCW. It didn't amount to anything. So it was a bummer for him and everyone else, because you know, why move to another company and they're not doing you any justice? And unfortunately, that was the situation where Bret just did not have a good career with WCW, and he blames Eric Bischoff for that. And yeah, I would blame him too, but you know, it just was a different type of environment from WWF, and it just wasn't a good fit for him. And it would have been better off if things would have worked out with WWF, or perhaps he could have gone overseas to maybe one of the promotions in Japan or whatnot, and had a much better run than WCW. But honestly, I feel like I would have just been like, fine, vacate the title on Raw and go about your way. But the thing is that they did not want to glorify Bret Hart on his way out of the company to go to the company that was doing better than them in ratings. And even that I could understand as well. And it was nice to see everyone talk about this. It was a pretty good episode. Next episode is about Bruiser Brody. Oh my God, this one is an emotional one for me. Very mysterious, strange circumstances surrounding his death, and very, very sad for a promising wrestler. Like, he was going to be really, really huge had he had lived that situation. I'll be back with that review soon. Bye-bye.